If you take judgment and how we're conditioned and also the legal side, everything out of it, one person's line of cocaine once a month can possibly enrich his or her life, while as somebody else, it can really put them onto a downward spiral.
Jan Gerber, addiction, mental health expert and entrepreneur. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Why the most exclusive? I mean, we were talking a little bit off camera about obviously that your niche is for the wealthy. Is that a marketing niche, or is there different mental health care for wealthy people?
Well, it's both. I mean, from the entrepreneur's point of view, obviously I saw an opportunity at the time because it's a niche that wasn't covered. But also there was a reason it wasn't covered, because it takes this particular experience and skill sets and, let's say, cultural competence to work with this demographic to be able to actually provide relevant and impactful mental health care for this demographic.
And are you here in Dubai to ultimately open more clinics over this side of the world, or you want to promote people going back to Switzerland?
So a significant part of our clientele comes from the Middle East. Obviously, it's wealthy members of business families or royal families. So I'm here to obviously meet them and reach out and talk to their doctors. What's closest to my heart and what I always do when I'm on these trips is share knowledge, educate, create awareness, fuel the dialogue of kind of breaking down the stigma, and particularly in the field of mental health and wealth, mental health and entrepreneurship, because it's harder for the general population to relate or feel compassion for the emotional pain of a high achiever, or somebody who is even born, not even an achiever in their own right, as it's often seen, just born into wealth or fame or a royal family for that matter. Somehow the general population, we tend to project that their pain is less deserved, or they have nothing to complain about. And I advocate pain is pain. Pain is real. It doesn't matter what your last name is. As a human being in pain, you deserve compassion. And we also underestimate, or we don't really attribute enough value to what these people do for us as a society. So if you build a massive business, if you manage a business, if you run a country, if you entertain the public, you do a service to society. Yes, you might be handsomely, materially rewarded for that, but it's a massive emotional sacrifice. So being wealthy, being in the public spotlight, being constantly stressed because it's a different stress. If a $1 billion company's trajectory is on your shoulders, or if you're criticized in public all the time for your policies or whatever, or the media follows you every step that you go, that has a massive toll on your mental health. And I think we should just put more value onto that, appreciate that more, but also give all of these individuals a bit more slack. So when they're not well and stressed, leave them alone, but also feel with them. Because if you can feel empathy for the billionaire high achiever, I think we can also feel much more empathy for everybody else who suffers emotionally.
What are you first and foremost, addiction and mental health, or entrepreneur?
Ooh, that depends on who I'm talking to. So I guess I'm probably more the entrepreneur.
You set out in life to be an entrepreneur and then ended up in the mental health space?
Yeah, exactly. I set out working as a management consultant, and then working 100-hour weeks. At some point I was like, if I work that much, I'd rather do it, not for senior partners and projects I don't have control over, but build my own thing. But always knew that one day I would have my own ventures or companies. And then, I set out, trying this or that. Some failed, some were okay, lots of learnings. And then at some point I ended up founding the world's most, let's say, exclusive, comprehensive, addiction and mental health clinic.
So how do you treat stress? Talk to me specifically about stress from an entrepreneur's perspective.
I think there's two ways to look at it or to approach it. One is exactly what you were talking about, is how can you do external changes in your life, your lifestyle, your commitments in such a way that you will at least at some point achieve a level of less total stress or demand on your energy and attention and time. The other approach of view is, can we reframe how we perceive stress and learn tools how to deal with stress when we acutely feeling at the brink of being overwhelmed or even feeling overwhelmed. And that kind of goes a bit hand in hand. So if somebody goes to a clinic because they're overwhelmed, let's say burnout, stress, it's just too much. So they go into a clinic or they come to us. For a few weeks, we focus on patching them up, processing some things, kind of calming the nervous system. Their businesses, their life, everything kind of continues on the outside, and then when they go back, they will still nothing will have resolved itself on its own. But they will have more tools on a day-to-day basis to be more resilient facing that stress, and then be in a position to actually say, okay, now what do I do now? I don't want to go back. I don't want to be back there in 6 months where I was just before I came to the clinic. What do I need to change on the outside? But at least you'll be equipped to do that. Whereas when you're at a breaking point, where do you start? It's overwhelming. Shall I first, wind down this business or sell that property, say, or just commit less time to this organization or to this friendship? Often you're not in a position to actually make such decisions because it's all just overwhelming. You feel paralyzed. So then you first focus on getting your energy back, building some resilience, learning some tools. And they can be simple things. Normally when we're stressed out, what goes first out of the window? Normally it's healthy habits like eating healthy. I go to carbs and sugar when I'm super stressed, and caffeine, right? Some people up their cocaine or whatever it might be. Another thing that goes out the window is regular exercise, or consistent exercise. So my minutes or hours at the gym will decrease, and sometimes down to zero. Whatever is good for us for kind of mental hygiene seems in the priority list of when you're acutely stressed seems to be low down, but actually it should be high up. So we should rather cancel, even if it's an important meeting with the bank or business partner or that. Rather put that one down and say, okay, no, but I'm going to the gym, and then we can meet. Did you get into this business space because of problems that you'd had yourself? No, actually, I got into this as an entrepreneur, with both my parents from the healthcare field. So I always said I will never go into healthcare, right? And then here I am. Built different companies, as I mentioned, some successful, some less successful, and also in the healthcare field, other clinics. And I was doing this kind of boutique mental health setup for the better part of a decade, and I thought I knew everything about mental health, also mental health and wealth, because it comes with its own challenges, about relationships, about self-care, and it still completely blindsided me. So I learned a lot from that experience myself. Talk to me about prescription medication. So there's a time and a place for medication to alleviate symptoms or to help somebody through a recovery process. I think the problem that the global health system or the global mental health system is still recovering from or suffering from is the heavy focus on prescription medication for different reasons. Regulations, Is that because it's easy to give someone something, or because they make money from giving it? Well, I mean, there was a time with direct, B2C marketing in some countries, but North America, which was less regulated, where you see an ad online, do you feel depressed? Ask your doctor for this or that. And obviously, there's a lot of money to be made by the big pharma companies. Now, this medication would be there if pharmaceutical companies didn't spend a lot of research money and all that. So I'm not judging this is good or bad. But what I'm saying is we have to be very pragmatic about that. So there's a time and a place for prescription medication, for sleep, for depression, for anxiety, whatever it might be. But it shouldn't always be prescribed in a context of a strategy. And the problem we have in many parts of the world, even where there is a mental health care system, where in some parts of the world that doesn't even exist, right? The public healthcare systems, they have so little resources that a psychiatrist might have half an hour for you, and then he might have another half an hour next week or in 2 weeks. And within half an hour, you don't even scratch the surface of why somebody suffers emotionally. So the easiest way to help them to live another day and alleviate their pain is to prescribe. But in the absence of a wider strategy, so okay, we prescribe now, it will alleviate your symptoms. But once you're okay or being able to cope, what do we do then? Well, we need to address the root cause of why you got there in the first place. Because if you just prescribe and you take this medication for months, some people for years, we have clients who came to us with decades of history of antidepressants, the brain self-regulates. We build tolerance. We know about this in alcohol, drugs, all that. We taught that in school, right? You need to up the dose to have the same effect. That's the same with antidepressants or anxiety medication. If you take or sleeping medication, if you take on a regular basis. So at some point, you're almost back to feeling the same.
And you need more.
But you need more. And at some point, you can't up the dose because it's a heavy dose. And with antidepressants, often it's not just that. The side effects can be massive.
So if you're ever prescribing an antidepressant, are you always prescribing it with the viewpoint that one day you want them off it?
Yes.
There's no people that need to be on it full time?
I mean, look, again, we have to be very pragmatic about that, but you will never on day one be able to say, okay, you need this for the rest of your life, or you only need this for 2 or 3 months. But you need to have a strategy where you revisit, where is somebody at, in a few months' time, you reevaluate what's the best strategy, going forward. But it should never be in the absence of addressing the root cause. So therapy is often, a very good way, whilst somebody is stabilized with psychotropic medication, to process the underlying issues, and at some point they don't need that support crutch of that medication anymore, or they don't need it every day. And there's some medication that obviously you need to kind of build up and have kind of a regular baseline, like most antidepressants, and others like anti-anxiety medication or sleep medication you can take ad hoc when you feel that there is a need. We need just to be more pragmatic about that. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever works, whatever helps.
Has there been changes in addiction, or let's say quantum of people addicted, quantum of people suffering, as time has gone on through the ages? So you look at things like social media, mobile phones, etc. That me as a layman would assume that has given a lot more opportunity for people to be addicted to something, for people to be stressed about something. I mean, I'm sure back in 1925 it was pretty chilled back then.
Pretty chilled. Yeah. I mean, other challenges, obviously, right?
I mean, someone from today's world will probably be utterly miserable back then, feeling how bored it was. But you wake up, you plough your land, you go to bed.
That's exactly that. I was actually thinking that in my mind is plough your land. I'm not a historian, but I would say that over the millennia and centuries, recent centuries, and even possibly even decades, before the technological developments just exponentially took off and completely changed the way we live as human beings and how we inhabit the world. From day-to-day life, it was just how do I feed my family? How do I not die this or that cruel death in war or of disease? So we kept our minds occupied and very much in the moment from day to day. I'm not saying there was, a happier or less anxious life possibly, but in a way we didn't have time to worry too much about what other people think about us, about purpose, about loneliness, topics that are very much at the core of mental illness, mental suffering today. That just came with kind of the luxury of having many options of leisure activities or leisure opportunities, and just the material possibilities a lot of us have today.
Mental health is a word that is used every day nowadays. I would argue in many instances misused as well, certainly taken advantage of. Where does the line of mental health and addiction begin, and what are the different derivatives therein?
Right. I don't know what the dictionary definition actually is, but I always say something is a problem when it becomes a problem. And obviously it's very different for every person. And often, it's perceived as a problem possibly by the family and not by the person of concern yet. So sometimes there are discrepancies there. But in the end, it's all one spectrum. What do we want? Most of us would say we want to live a happy, fruitful, fulfilling life without too much pain. And obviously life is, painful, and it has its ups and downs and challenges.
And that's that's mental pain, that's physical pain, that's irritant pain, that's anything.
Exactly. I think that's what we all have in common as human beings. We try to achieve happiness or be happy and to avoid pain. I think that's what the Dalai Lama says, right? That's kind of what we have all in common. And then life throws challenges at us, and then we handle them in different ways. And we also prepared differently. Some people are a bit more resilient. Some people are a bit less resilient for different reasons: genetic makeup, how they grew up, and also how they experienced their childhood versus others. And at some point, for a lot of us, life can become overwhelming, or certain situations can become overwhelming in such a way that we just we can't handle life's challenges, the pain anymore in a healthy, sustainable way. So there's two ways. Either we directly go to therapy. Most people don't. Most people try to cope one way or another. The lucky ones have good friends to talk to, or family that kind of are a safety net and help out. And others, alcohol, drugs, medication, other compulsive behaviors are a way to cope, to self-medicate such pain. And then, at some point that doesn't work anymore. It becomes too much. And then, sooner or later, many will need professional help.
As someone who's been there and suffered it yourself, and now as someone who treats other people, where does that line come in between saying, shut up and get on with it, mate, and no, you've actually got a problem?
If you put a stress onto your muscles, or using the analogy onto your nerves by facing life's challenges, yes, you can grow from that. Something will break, something will challenge you, but it will grow back stronger, and over time you will build more resilience. But you can also overdo it, or life can overdo it for you, that you go beyond that point where with optimal stress to your system, and kind of overloads and overstresses your system, and that can happen at the gym as well. I mean, about was a year and a half ago, I was for 2 months on crutches because I was doing martial arts with my trainer, and I did a roundhouse kick and I tore my calf muscle, and I just fell down in pain, and then I didn't walk for 2 months, and it took me many months to come back from that. And I wouldn't say I've come back stronger at this point. And it's the same with mental health challenges. So a lot of things that life throws at us, we can grow stronger from that. I mean, if we have no stresses or challenges throughout all our life, we couldn't face the simplest thing. We couldn't face going to the supermarket because we'd be all like, exposed. What do people think about us? How do I do this or how do that? So normally growing up as a kid, we kind of shown the ropes, and we faced the insecurities and the challenges and the first heartbreak and self-esteem issues and all that, and we grow from that. But it can become too much, and then it can come to a level where we just can't handle it. Again, there's no right or wrong, and some people can handle more and others can handle less, as I said before. I think we just have to look at the fact that at some point it can become too much, and that's very individual. Like I said, it's a problem when it becomes a problem. There's also something called post-traumatic growth. Not, as referring to post-traumatic stress disorder and all that. There's the possible upside, and it's just recently being more researched. So people have been, through hell on earth, through very traumatic experiences, but were able to frame and process that to a way that this trauma doesn't hold them back anymore, but actually can turn it around. You can transform, you can grow from that. Be more resilient. I mean, next time you face such challenges, whatever it might be, losing a company or a relationship, or even facing a significant loss. Next time around, last time it was very painful, but I did handle it, and somehow I became stronger, maybe a different or better person, maybe more reflective, maybe a more grateful person, whatever might come out of that. So there's always opportunity in crisis as well. But when you're in the pain, and your brain just stops functioning. So I had this experience where just taking a public transport or going into a supermarket was too much. I would get an anxiety attack. And intellectually, I know so much about mental health. I knew exactly what was happening. And I could rationalize it. My intellect was sitting there and observing. I was like, this is very interesting. There's no rational reason to be afraid of sitting in a bus. But there was this... the anxiety was there, and it was very tough to handle. And I think having experienced that myself, and for everybody who has experienced that, it gives us another dimension of being able to relate to people who do suffer from this every day. You haven't felt this pain, it's tough.
And when you say it becomes a problem when it's a problem, is that not a subjective matter, as in, I don't know, one person's couple of drinks is another person's alcoholism? As a practitioner or as a clinic, when someone comes to you, talk me through day one in the clinic. How does the process work?
Mm-hmm. I strongly advocate that we just need to be more pragmatic about mental health and addiction particularly, but generally mental health, because again, it is different for everybody. You said one person's 1 or 2 drinks is somebody else's alcohol addiction. We need to be pragmatic about everything. I mean, if you take judgment and how we conditioned, and also the legal side, everything out of it, one person's line of cocaine once a month can possibly enrich his or her life, while as somebody else, it can really put them onto a downward spiral. Paracelsus was a medieval doctor, alchemist from Switzerland, so we borrowed the name from him. A famous quote is, "It's a dose that makes the poison." So that's another way to say it's a problem when it becomes a problem, right? And people will feel individually for themselves when they just can't handle it anymore. So it's either too much anxiety, or they can't get out of bed in the morning, or people around them tell them, look, you've changed so much, I can't live with you anymore, or this or that. There's different ways that, the symptoms can boil up to a again boiling point, to a tipping point where people realize, okay, now I need to call a therapist or a clinic, and that's normally when we get a call, and then we establish with them, why they call us, why they seek our help, and what are their aims. Normally, when you enter as an inpatient into a mental health or addiction clinic, it's kind of one size fits all. That's your schedule. The goal is, complete abstinence, and for the rest of your life, you go to 12-step meetings or this or that, or delete all your phone numbers of people who have bad influence on you, whatever. I don't think that's very realistic or pragmatic for a long-term solution. So when we meet a client who comes to us, we establish the goals together. Why are you here? What are your aims? And they can be different for everybody.
Is this process the same regardless of what the addiction is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even addressing addiction, if it's drugs or alcohol or process addictions, sex, gambling, online trading, whatever it might be, shopping. In a way, the mechanism how to treat that is similar. Obviously, when a substance is involved, you also need to look at the physical dependence, and you can do withdrawal protocols and all that. But addiction is always just a symptom. There's underlying reasons why somebody becomes addicted, and again, that's like self-medicating, pain or fear, anxiety, depression, whatever it might be, and that root cause. It doesn't matter. Some people self-medicate with alcohol, others self-medicate with money and power and building things, which seems to be a more productive way to do that, but the person, him or herself, might be equally suffering behind that because it's just kind of self-medicating or projecting the problems outwards rather than trying to heal from the inside.
How long is a typical visit to the clinic on a first trip? Mm-hmm. And once someone finishes that, do you tend to maintain an ongoing or lifelong relationship with them to for extra assistance and to prevent relapse?
So again, we're very pragmatic about duration of stays and how we organize everything. Because we're in a position with kind of a boutique setup that we can be very flexible. So if we adjust, let's say, an intensity of a program, or somebody even coming in and out because they have to have regular board meetings or TV appearances, we can do that. We can adjust treatment schedule according to our client's need without impacting other clients, because every client has their own treatment team, doctors, therapists, coordinators, and all that. No other clinic in the world really has that possibility to be so flexible. So we can do short interventions from a week or so. Obviously, a week doesn't solve a mental health or an addiction issue, but it can patch somebody up to a level where they can function again. Learn a bit about how to cope with stress, anxiety, depression, what it might be, to a level where they function for a while, and then at some point they might come back. Sometimes there might be enough just to get them on the track where they manage on their own. But most often, be 1 to 2 months of kind of an intensive setting as we provide it. That's the most
1
productive.
to 2 months in-house.
In-house. That's most sustainable and most effective. But then the transition back into the home environment is equally important. And there's a term, I think, like a post-treatment crash, especially in the field of addiction treatment, where the crucial time is the weeks after. Days and the weeks after going home, because you're out of that structured environment, you're out of somebody holding you safe and guiding you through the day, and at the same time you're back exposed to the triggers you came from, be it relationship dynamics, family, job pressure, whatever it is. It's all there in the inpatient treatment. You were sheltered from that to a large degree. So these two factors coming together, put those days and weeks after treatment, it really puts somebody at risk. So to navigate that is equally important. We often send a therapist with a client to go back home with them, or travel with them if they have a kind of a mobile lifestyle, to be there as kind of a safety net and guide them through that. We help clients to build their own structure in their home environment, just build a healthier lifestyle to kind of consolidate that recovery and prevent relapse in the addiction case, or generally in mental health kind of reoccurrence of issues.
Do you find people have different mental health issues in different countries? Do you find they react differently, they're treated differently? So
yes and no. So what connects us all, that we're human beings and we have kind of a similar, same physiological makeup. So the way neurotransmitters work and the way certain lifestyle factors on have an impact on our mental well-being, that is quite similar. The cultural context and culturally, both regionally but also sociodemographically, I must say that's also kind of cultural in a way. So if somebody is very, very wealthy, it's to somebody who is, from middle class or materially less fortunate, the kind of divide or the difference is almost as being from different regions or cultural backgrounds in terms of what your reality is. Because we're conditioned to see everything in life or experience everything in life through a filter. And we try to make sense of everything, right? But that filter we're taught by our parents, by our teachers, by our social and religious and cultural context. So there's areas in the world where mental health is, it is either sane and crazy. And that's how the whole world used to be like, right? It was until not very long ago, there was mental asylums, and it was equal to just, well, crazy people go there. And now we realize it's, science and modern medicine has arrived at a point where we realize, it's obviously much more complex and subtle than that. But many areas, and the GCC region to some degree is like that, where it takes a bit longer for people to realize it's, there's nothing good or bad or strong or weak or evil or good about suffering pain and being emotionally vulnerable, but it's just a fact. So again, pragmatism. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. Seeing mental health or how we see mental health always goes through that filter of judging values, or that in parts of the West we think, well, we know it all better because we see it from a more human, a more pragmatic point of view, but that's a judgment in its own right. And what I advocate, we need to take judgment out of this. We just need to be pragmatic. Somebody suffers pain. What can we do to alleviate that pain in the context of what that person is ready to do and not ready to do?
Is exercise a big part of recovery and treatment for you guys?
Absolutely, both in terms of treatment and recovery, and also in terms of prevention. We automatically, neurologically, physiologically, is emotionally more resilient if we are fit. Fit is one thing, and then the regular kind of dopamine and endorphin release, naturally from exercise, kind of compensates for some of the pains and troubles and stresses.
Do you have a rule of thumb that you tell for everybody, like you've got to do your 10,000 steps a day or something, or an hour's exercise a day?
No, 2 flights of stairs a day can be somebody else's half marathon. I mean, obviously there can be too much, and people can go into compulsive and excessive exercise. But as a rule of thumb, it's if you can squeeze in an extra minute flight of stairs or an extra half an hour here or there, there's normally nothing wrong with that.
In terms of prevention, particularly talking to my entrepreneurial audience and CEOs, etc., other than clean eating or better eating and exercise, what other preventative measures are out there for not letting mental health, stress, anxiety creep in?
I think an important factor in prevention can be practicing awareness.
Being aware that you are stressed.
Yeah, take a moment, every day or once a week, call it me time, soul time, reflection time, whatever, but actually check in with yourself. And I learned this the hard way. I did it post my own crash, because I always had a self-narrative, I have nerves of steel, and no matter what comes, and my ups and downs, as an entrepreneur, my sleepless nights and my euphoric nights, and the same in relationships and all that, but my self-narrative was always like, I'll manage somehow. So I was never look in the mirror and like, okay, so how I'm actually doing, what's my battery level? Is it green? Is it orange? Is it red? Is it like super dangerous? And what can I and do I need to do about that? I've only learned that, again, the hard way, as many people do. But practicing that awareness or self-reflection, checking in with yourself, you kind of get to gauge where you're at. You can act early rather than react to when basically the proverbial hits the fan, and because you have more to lose then as well, right? And that action, when you feel okay, so my batteries are draining, I feel chronically more stressed. My sleep, normally that goes out the window first, is sleep quality, and now we have all these devices where you can even objectively measure it, right? And if you see that, for instance, your sleep quality is declining, so a lot of people will be okay, so every few days or so, I pop a Xanax or a Valium, and then I sleep better. And then when you're honest with yourself, you realize that when you see a pattern that the dose increases or the intervals they shorten, this you only realize if you actually pay attention to that. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope. You kind of get into that. So the best prevention is that.
So for anyone listening to this who is, I guess, either relating to this, thinking, now is the time for me to, whether it's seek treatment directly from yourselves or go through doctors. Why Paracelsus? I can't even say it properly. That real tongue twister. Why Paracelsus? Obviously, your niche. You're very exclusive, very confidential. But what are the other selling points of your clinic?
We pioneered basically the 360-degree approach to mental health. So now more and more practitioners and clinics and systems realize that, but mental health is not an isolated medical discipline. It's how we feel in our body, how our neurochemical setup is. If you have deficiency, if you have chronic health issues such as chronic inflammation, pains, and all that. All of that has an impact on our mental health, so that needs to be diagnosed and treated equally to processing trauma or addressing personality disorders. It's basically the best treatment money can buy, and the confidentiality and let's say the luxury and comfort that's just a given. Obviously, people who can afford a treatment at Paracelsus recovery, they're used to a certain level of comfort and discretion. So it's not about that. Also the cultural competence, and I'm talking culturally in terms of wealth and fame. As wealth and famous people in a way as a minority when it comes to their particular struggles and needs. So a therapist or doctor working with them, they need to have experience with this demographic to really be able to sustainably help them. Not anybody, even a very good therapist who hasn't worked with this demographic, can actually do an adequate job. I guess it's those two factors, and obviously, if you want a team of 15 to 20, doctors, therapists, experts, and the best in their fields, kind of interdisciplinary team, just looking after you and your own health, then that's probably the only place in the world you can go to for that.
Well, Jan, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. Very, I guess, very interesting for me on the, particularly on the entrepreneurial, CEO, and stress side of things. Give yourself a little shout out of where anyone listening or watching can find you, can contact you or the clinic, and leave us all with one piece of advice to have a little less mental health stress this week.
Well, to find us, if you just, Google my name or Paracelsus Recovery or, the world's most exclusive mental health clinic, whatever you put in, we're likely to pop up. And we answer every call, every email, and we can just, enter a dialogue with us and see if we can help you. In terms of advice, and I think that just comes from my very own experience, is let's try, and that's easier said than done, if you try to see everything a bit less serious. Because as entrepreneurs, we have a bit of the tendency to kind of maybe even a superstition in a way that if you don't, work the extra hour or go to that extra meeting or do that extra thing, everything might implode. The house won't burn down if we cut ourselves some slack, take a day off, or again, just make that hour in the gym a fixed thing in our agenda. It's quite the opposite, actually. You'll be surprised what happens in terms of productivity and success if you put ourselves first. Don't take yourselves too seriously. Take a day off and have a laugh. Exactly, have a laugh. That's equally important. Yeah, and thanks a lot for being here. Thanks, Matt, for having me.